So thank you so much for joining us today for Improving Paths to Justice. My name is Ashley Armstrong, and I'm a communications co-director at Interpares. And I'm joining you today from the unceded territory of the Algonquin people. We pay respect to the Algonquin people, who are the original guardians of this land, and acknowledge their long-standing relationship with this territory, which remains unceded. So for those of you that know us well, and those of you who are new, Interpares means among equals, and we are a feminist social justice organization that believes in solidarity as an approach to international cooperation. Interpares programs largely focus on 6 global issues: food sovereignty, gender justice, peace and democracy, economic justice, health, and migration. And we work with long-term counterparts, both local and national social justice organizations in Asia, Africa, Latin America, and Canada. If you're looking for more information about us, you're welcome to visit our website at interpares.ca or find us on social media. So before we dive into the conversation today, I just have a couple of logistics to note. If you need any tech support throughout the webinar, please chat with Monique. She's here today to help us on the tech side of things, and you can find her in the participants list. Her name is labeled with tech beside it. Also, the chat will remain open throughout the webinar, as well as the Q&A part. So we would love for you to introduce yourself in the chat, share with us how you know Interpares, or how you know one of the organizations that are joining us today. Let us know where you're joining from. And if you have any questions, feel free to add them to the Q&A app, and we will come back to them after the conversation. And lastly, the webinar is being recorded, and we'll be sure to share the recording with you. So you've all joined us today to learn more about how Nijera Kori and the Barbra Schlifer Clinic are improving access to justice in both formal and informal legal systems. I'm joined today by my colleague, David Brewer, and Luki Akhtar Bristi, a program coordinator with Nijera Kori in Bangladesh, and Deepa Matu, the executive director of the Schlifer Clinic. Welcome, David, Luki, and Deepa. On that note, I'll pass it over to David to get us started. David?
Okay. Sorry, I have to unmute myself. I thought somebody would do it for me. Welcome, everybody. My name is David Brewer, and as Ashley said, I am a program manager with Interpares, and I have the honor of working with Nijera Kori from Bangladesh, and I'm very pleased that they can be with us today to talk about a topic that's been a really important part of their work for so many years of women's access to justice. Nijera Kori is one of our longest term counterparts. We began our relationship with them in 1980, only 5 years after Interpares was formed, actually. And we've worked in solidarity with them ever since. They share an analysis with us that poverty and marginalization are not the result of bad luck or circumstance, but rather they're the result of inequality and injustice, both within countries and among countries. We don't believe that our work is about charity. We are a registered charity, but we are not a charitable organization. We believe that these are issues of social justice, and we look for organizations that share that analysis. And Nijera Kori is one of those organizations. We also believe that social justice takes time, and that's why we've been relating for so many years with Nijera Kori. You don't change entrenched systems of class and gender overnight. We don't believe that it's our job to tell Nijera Kori what to do. They are the experts in their own context. What we do is to work in solidarity with them. One of the ways we do this is to find funds to help support the work that they do. So we ask Canadians to support Interpares and our counterparts. And I want to start by thanking all of you on this call who do so, who generously support Interpares. Another way is to seek funding from the Government of Canada through Global Affairs Canada. And this lets us provide much larger resources to groups like Nijera Kori. And we're doing exactly that right now through a multi-year project that includes them and their work on sexual and gender-based violence. So thank you very much to Global Affairs Canada. Just a little bit, and I hope I don't preempt Luki in this, but a little bit of background on Nijera Kori. They started in 1980. They use a rights-based approach to work with the poor and the marginalized in rural areas, people who have no access to land. They help poor women and men to form local groups of 20 to 25 people, and these are called the landless groups. So you'll probably hear Luki talk about the landless groups. Nijera Kori has helped people to form a lot of groups, okay? We're talking about over 10,000 groups like that in Bangladesh, in over 1,100 villages, over 220,000 women and men. So it's big, and it has a lot of influence. You're going to hear that from Luki. We're a feminist social justice organization. The struggles we participate in are not just those in the global south. They're here in Canada as well. So women do not only face problems in gaining access to justice in Bangladesh, but also here in Canada. We are fortunate to have a relationship with one of Canada's leading voices on women's access to justice, the Barbra Schlifer Commemorative Clinic in Toronto. Their former ED is the chair of our board, and we've collaborated on several activities in Sudan, the Philippines, as a couple examples. And the work of the Barbra Schlifer Clinic is about helping women live lives free from violence by offering legal help, counseling, and other services. They are experts in the issues that women face in accessing justice here in Canada. One of the side effects of COVID-19 pandemic that was identified early on was an increase in sexual and gender-based violence around the world. So while it's something that both organizations have sought to address for many years, it's become even more of an issue during the past couple of years of this pandemic. And so that brings us today to this webinar. We're really happy that we can bring these two wonderful organizations together. From Nijera Kori, I am very pleased to welcome Luki Akhtar. And from the Barbra Schlifer Clinic, very pleased to welcome Deepa Mattu. We've brought them here for a discussion around women's access to justice. We hope to do this through a series of questions. And I've shared the questions with both of them beforehand, so I'm not going to spring them on you. And we're going to use that as the basis of what I hope is a bit of a free-flowing discussion. We're going to give Luki and Deepa about 25 minutes in this discussion, and then we will move to taking questions and comments, reactions from you in the audience. So let me introduce a little bit more formally both of our speakers, and then we'll jump right into some of the questions. Luki Akhtar is a feminist and an activist in Bangladesh who is focused on peasants' rights, the women's movement, gender, human rights, labor rights. She has a master's degree from Jagannath University in Dhaka, and she's been at Nijera Kori since 2020. She's currently the central program organizer and the focal person for the Rule of Law program, funded by the German agency GIZ. In her career, she's worked on a variety of projects dealing with preventing violent extremism, labor law, civic engagement, sexual and reproductive health rights, rule of law, and she's now working full-time with Nijera Kori. I almost said with Inter Pares, sorry about that. Deepa Matu is the executive director of the Barbra Schlifer Commemorative Clinic. Previously, she was the clinic's director of legal services. As the executive director, Deepa oversees the clinic's strategic direction and provides leadership to the legal, counseling, and interpretation departments. She's involved in projects related to the criminalization of women, sexual violence, and the precarious status of women, the risk assessment of gender-based violence, and interdisciplinary case management. She provides leadership for the clinic's advocacy work and has appeared before parliamentary committees, UN civil society meetings. She's an adjunct professor at U of T, Faculty of Law, as well as Osgood, where she's the co-director of the Feminist Advocacy Program. So we've got two really qualified women here to talk to. So let me start. And I'm going to start with you, Loki. We know that even before the pandemic, women in Bangladesh and Canada faced many obstacles in using justice systems, especially to address cases of sexual and gender-based violence. So in the villages in Bangladesh, my understanding is they really have two systems that women have to deal with. There's the formal legal system with police and lawyers and courts, as well as the traditional community system for resolving disputes known as the shalish. So can you highlight some of the challenges that women face accessing justice? And let's talk about before the pandemic, and how you as Nijera Kori, as the landless groups, try to address some of those challenges.
Thank you, David, and all of you. Take greetings from Nijera Kori. I'm very delighted to discuss about these issues. Thank you, David. I will focus on the points. So in our country, that before pandemic and after pandemic, the situation not actually totally changed. Before pandemic, we have faced some of the challenges which are still now is there. So before pandemic, I will give you some of our point which challenge we have faced. You know that there are significant political power dynamics working in the justice system. The whole system is controlled by the patriarchal power structure. And there are two ways of justice system. One, you have said that informal justice system, and another one is formal justice system. And informal justice system is which is under the control of elite of the locality, and the formal justice system which is under the political elites and who have financial strength and they have control over it. And you know that the investigation process of the cases are usually controlled by the powerful political elites, and which is therefore it is corrupted. And the problem arises with both when the plaintiff and witness, there is no provision of security in the laws, and the plaintiffs are forced to withdraw their case at times, and the witness involved do not open up in the court when the case proceeds. It is actually present in formal and informal justice system. Besides, you know that in the formal justice process, it is sometimes it is lengthy and costly, and that is why the majority of the people who are seeking justice don't want to undergo the process. And those who do need to face power dynamics working in the justice system. And most of the cases which are filed are always delayed and pending, and the local shalish are highly politicized. And the sometimes we will say the political leaders attempts to impose political influence and manipulation over the village court, which is controlled by the government and the local shalish. Moreover, you know that the in our country, Bangladesh government had amended a law, the local government law in 2015, in which they have allowed to use the symbol of a party for the running for a seat in the Union Parishad or Upajila Parishad, municipality, city corporation election. And all kinds of local level elections are currently being held under the party symbol. As a result, if the Union Parishad member participating in the Shalish, a political opinion and manipulation are seen. Furthermore, in the Shalish, the political leaders try to legalize their decision with the assistance of administration. And these political influence are linked with the traditional norms, patriarchy, religious bigotry. So this is actually what is happening. And you know that due to this influence, our dominance exists against women. And women are prevented from getting access to the justice system. And some of them are either directly silenced from speaking, while others who are approached to justice system, they are not given the comfort zone to speak up. And they are asked, sometimes they are asked very insensitive questions in the investigative process and even in the trial process too. So this is actually what is happening. So here, what we have done before the pandemic in Nijera Kori, that we are working to enhance the transparency, accountability, participation, and gender sensitivity in this judiciary system. So we are trying to build an autonomy in the landless organization practices as a separate collective force of both women, men, and adolescents. If any mediation seems to be manipulated, we think the landless organization observers protest instantly. Then these observers take up the roles of as an activist to protest against this manipulation. In this way, the powerful people, they are controlled organically. And you know that the both police and judiciary, they are under pressure, and weakness are ensured security by the Nijera Kori and also landless organization. So this is actually what we have done this. And of course, in our working areas, Nijera Kori always try to implement that the women should act as the mediators, as a judge, to take, even women will take the interviews of women, so that women who are seeking justice can find their comfort zone. Even for conducting a shalish, the landless organization follows some of the strategy. Just like that, when we get a complaint, the landless organization try to find out some more cases informally before shalish. Then we try to create a public opinion. So you know that we also follow the formal judiciary system too. If required, we also provide some financial support. Even in the even sometimes when the investigation is delayed, we demand the high investigation. And you know that instead of one lawyer, we include a group of lawyers so that it can be the powerful. So this is how we actually do it. And initially, the you know that the participation of the landless organization was not accepted by the local elites. So in our working areas now, it is increasing. You know that the women one time they cannot attend. Even now you will see that in the cases of land waste conflict or violence against women, we are trying to ensure their presence. This is how we have dealt with this type of thing. You know, we have challenged it and we face this way.
Okay, thank you very much, Luki. We're going to go into some more discussions. Could you slow down a little bit just for the translator? That's okay. Probably a shot across the bows for Deepa as well, but that's it's tough trying to follow everything and get it into French. So let me. You've spoken about two different justice systems. Oh, sorry, I just got a little message saying the recording was stopped, and then it said, okay, sorry. I'm not sure that a lot of people are understanding when we talk about this shalish. And the shalish is essentially a community hearing, right? I mean, and historically, traditionally, it would have been the village elders who came and you would make your complaint to. And my understanding is that it's, as you say, very dominated by the political and economic elites in those villages. Excuse me. So what? Sorry, I've never had that one before on a webinar. So I wanted to make sure that people were understanding that that's a parallel system to the formal system of courts and lawyers. Deepa, we don't really, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is we don't have that system in Canada. If you want to have access to the justice system, that means the formal justice system. But I presume that doesn't mean we've got no obstacles here in Canada. So maybe you could talk a little bit about what some of those obstacles are.
Thank you. And thank you, Luki. And as I was listening to Luki, I was thinking about this concept of parallel systems when it comes to access to justice for survivors of gender-based violence. And in Luki's work context in Bangladesh, clearly there are two parallel systems which are semi-recognized, as much as corrupt they are with the misogyny and the patriarchy. It seems that there is a recognition of that parallel process. In the context of Canada, if I may say so, and if I may also add the complexity of the colonial history of this country, where we have a common law justice system, but we also have Indigenous law. And we know that Indigenous survivors in this country face violence 6 times more than mainstream survivors. And that legal system is struggling for it. Similarly, a lot of communities do have their own parallel processes that they strive to keep in existence in one shape or the form. Now, the struggle is not so much that do we need those systems or not, but the impact of having those quasi processes where family influences or we are very well aware of the rape culture that exists in our society and the impact of that on the access of justice. So that's the parallel that I was making as I was listening to Luki, that yes, we have a very good, strong, well-worded needs changes and systemic reforms, similar to you, Luki, like the clinic works with a lot of law reform work, a lot of system change work. But we do have a good, solid system of legal processes. But does that solve the problem? Not so much, because having a system is one thing, accessing that system is another thing. And then the third wheel, which I talk about quite a bit, and the clinic has been talking about, is the experience of survivors in that system. Because if in a system that is designed in a very, very adversarial way, where every time a case is brought forward, you are not actually believed, your credibility is always in question, you are continuously pitted against a team of lawyers, as you were talking about, Luki, that you bring in team of people, we have team of people women are fighting against. And in our criminal justice system, and that survivors don't have a voice in the process. It's a case between the state versus the culprit, as in many other common law jurisdictions, and the survivor becomes just a witness in the matter. So her voice is completely lost in the process, and her credibility is in question. all the questioning is happening for her. So that's one challenge of the processes, that the access to justice is a huge challenge because the process is designed not in favor of the survivors, and it's not survivor-centered, and which we have been voicing our opinion against, taking strong positions, trying to make a shift. So most recent shift in Canada that's worth sharing is that recently the parliament passed a law that anyone who is going to be a judge in this country, at the time of the application of making a judge and going through the process, they will be made to sit through a mandatory training on how to work with sexual assault survivors and gender-based violence survivors. So that's like a big development in the Canadian context, because what we see is not the challenge that the lawyers are not trained or the system players are not trained. We also sometimes see that judges are not sensitive and not trauma informed. So that's like a one system change that has recently happened that I felt was worth sharing with you. But in terms of the other logistical pieces of access to justice, is the fact that the justice system, like many other systems in Canada, is very, very, very expensive. And that cost of the justice system makes it really inaccessible for survivors. So then what do survivors do when they're going through an experience? They try to get advice first from someone who has gone through the system. So someone in their family, someone they trust. Sometimes when they are from non-status refugee, immigrant, racialized communities, they'll go to someone in the community who is, knows the system. So they don't necessarily get access to justice in an accessible way. We do have a legal aid system. In some provinces in Canada, it's better than others. But that legal aid system requires you to be living in poverty. As David was talking about, that poverty is not what creates violence. Poverty is not what creates the situation of inequities. It's the intersectional systems of poverty, class, gender, folks, education system, all of those factors that creates inequity. And the system, the legal aid system, actually requires you to be living in poverty to get access to justice. It's a legislated system. Again, we are a highly regulated society, by the way. Like everything is regulated. We have a law for everything. And if we don't have one, we are thinking of making one. And I can see David is smiling with me because that's exactly how I feel about Canada. So access to justice in the Canadian context, the challenges are different, but the similarities that I find is that a lot of survivors would, instead of going to a lawyer, getting help from a formal system, would try other ways because of the barriers that are inherent within the system. Also, once the one experience of a woman having gone through a process, say, of a criminal justice trial, and having gone through the experience of cross-questioned and her credibility questioned at every stage, every time we see a case come forward and become well-known, we have a silencing effect on other survivors. So the reporting rate in Canada is not as great. I actually wanted to share a reporting rate here with me that what we see is that only 4 women out of the 10 women who are survivors actually ever talk about it. So it's less than 50% of women who will ever talk about it. In the case of sexual assault, it's even less than that. So our reporting rates are really, really low. And the complexity of COVID, I'm not even touching upon it, but it has just shown us another side of reality of gender-based violence. Like within the first month of lockdown, I want to share with you a stat that usually we say that Canada sees At any given point of time, we see around one woman is killed every 6 days. So that's the standing stats that we use. But when the lockdown started and pandemic, we saw 9 women killed in the first month. So we saw almost more than 30% jump and within the and then we saw a mass shooting that happened in Nova Scotia, where we saw 13 women killed in a rampage. And obviously, the investigation is still out there to make a connection with the lockdown and the COVID reality. But Oxfam released a data that 70% of the women during lockdown reported to have increased anxiety, mental health challenges. So yeah, I think it's the access to a challenge. I do come from, like, my place of work was India. So I do come from a background of appreciating your challenges way more and your ground reality way more. But what is interesting is, and Amanda is in the room, and me and Amanda have talked about it multiple times, that the reality is that Canada should be compared to Canada when it comes to what we can do. And I feel like we are far behind in terms of our structures.
Thank you, Deepa. There's a lot of really rich comments there. Luki, I saw you nodding in agreement several times during that. Deepa was saying that the cost of the legal system is a huge impediment, a huge obstacle for women. That the fear of abusive lawyers is another obstacle. Does that resonate with you? Is that what you see in your work in Bangladesh?
Yes, this is actually what Deepa is talking. This is actually common, I think, in everywhere you will see. And you will see that this is very common, that because at first this is very lengthy, and number second, that is very costly, and women fall this type of trap,
Is that a reason that women would go to the alternative, to the Shalish system? Because I mean, you don't have to hire a lawyer. You make your case in the community.
Actually, it depends. It is not actually, but that in some of the cases that small cases, it can be mediated by the Shalish. But there are many cases which are not, which should not be mediated by the Shalish. It should be go to the formal court. And that the problem is different types, that when we try to say that that this system, that Shalish, this case should not be done in the Shalish, that then just like a criminal case, then some of the cases, the political elites, they try to impose their power so that that this problem can be solved in these areas. So this is how it is happening. So it varies from time case to cases, but that if some cases which are can be reasonable by the Shalish, that is what we want, that if they go to the formal court, which is really can be mediated by the Shalish, then it is they don't have their burden to go the formal system. But we try to resolve, that in our cases we have for some days, we in the Nijera Kori, we are trying a pilot project that is called, that the adjust system. This is one of the system, that is restorative justice system. So we are trying to impose this as a pilot project. If we can implement it, then we can resolve some of many issues in this system too, or it is one of another form of shalish. So we are trying to actually lace the cases, but you know that there are many cases which are not reported. There are many cases, in many cases the women are never gone to the formal procedure, even to shalish too. These are resolved in the family, they remain silent. So this is actually the problem, you know, the patriarchy norms actually do this. And even in many afterward we will say many things that you know, whenever we have launched in the time of pandemic, when we have launched the hotline number, here we have got several cases, and we have dealt of several cases in the time of pandemic, because you know that many cases we have got, that is the violence against women, or the child marriage, or many things that they have reported to us, and our Nijera Kori workers and the landless members, they have monitored this so that this can be reported, this can be mediated, or if this is not, can be mediated through shalish or alternative justice system, so that it can be referred to the formal justice system. So we have done it, but you know that in as patriarchal norms is there, there is a culture to be of silence, that the women will be silenced, so it impacts on this judiciary system.
No, very, very, very much. Thank you for that, Nuki. I see a question actually in the question and answer, Deepa, about restorative justice. And since Luki raised that now, the question is any thoughts about restorative justice processes for survivors in Canada as opposed to an adversarial criminal justice process? So I wonder if you want to, if you could briefly weigh in on that.
There is a lot of curiosity in I would say in the feminist circles, as well as legal thinkers, among legal thinkers, about what could be a good restorative justice process in Canadian context. But as I mentioned before, that you know, we're a highly regulated society, so which means that we thinking of a system which is an outside to the common law, and but still recognized in the you know, in the Quebec, in the civil system and in the common law system, still recognized, would require a lot of thinking, a lot of work, and some years of work. But I'm seeing a lot of curiosity. I'm seeing, and some communities, like at university levels, at the community level, I have seen some people come up with conflict resolution models which talk about a restorative process, and which are trauma informed. So I've seen some guideline driven processes. I am also very curious about it, and I'm also very open from my personal space and also from the clinic space. We are a very, very trauma-informed, client-centered space. So absolutely, we do understand that law is just as one of the journey of healing, on a journey of recovery. And of course, the more options survivor has, better it would be. But my fear is that any system, if it is not designed with some deep thinking about how misogyny enters a space, or how patriarchy enters a space, the corruption of any system is possible. So that's what is my fear. Unfortunately, what happens is survivors are somehow always given the responsibility, right? Like that in Canadian context, we have a model survivor of a sexual assault. This model survivor is a white woman, well-employed, articulate, right? So, and somehow, if she is able to speak to her experience in a most articulate manner, then she's a model survivor. Unfortunately, when systems are designed and responsibility somehow is not on the system, but on the survivor, it's not a good system. So I lead with curiosity on this issue, and I want us to explore. I want us to learn from our Indigenous elders. I want us to learn from our refugee and immigrant communities. But I also want to give a caution that there is no dream system if that system still has misogyny and patriarchy attached to it, because system is run by people.
That's, yeah, so true. And I mean, I think that links back beautifully to what Lucky was saying, that, you know, the Shalish system, when I first heard about it in Bangladesh, I thought, wow, that's great. That is, you know, get rid of the lawyers, get rid of the judges and the cost, and settle things at a community level. And then when you find that it's the same wealthy, powerful guys who take all the decisions, you think, no, there are probably fewer safeguards in the Shalish system than there are in the formal legal system. And so what would you have to do? And Deepa, you started, I mean, you gave us the example of lawyers and judges being told they must take certain trainings around to sensitize themselves around some of these issues. So I'll put it first to you, Luki. What needs to change? What would you do? Is it just lots of landless groups doing lots of protests, or, you know, what would have to change in the formal legal system? Could you change the informal, the Shalish system, to make it work better?
Thank you, David and Deepa. I was hearing all of when she was uttering all the issues. I got that this is many things are very similar to us. So what we actually do? Actually, this is our you know that this is our regular job, that to change the society. The motto of Nijera Kori, that we want to change the society, this patriarchal norms. We want to break this patriarchy. But how to do it? We you know that we want to train our landless organization members on you know that rigorous monitoring system on all forms of violence against women and adolescents. They do it. We want to do it. And even we want to enhance the comfort spaces for women and adolescents to express themselves. We want the women representation in government and also in the local institution. We, you know that we have for my sexual harassment complaint committee, and we want to formate it in all the schools with the representatives of our landless organization in accordance with the you know that the High Court directives. And we want to, in this way, we want to collective pressure on these committees so that they should be active. And in the Shalish process, we want that there should be, of course, the female judges, and the observers will be female. And overall, Nijera Kori always tries to enhance the transparency in this formal, informal both system. And the Shalish system, we want transparency and accountability, and to make the gender sensitive this Shalish. And that is all that we want to change the actually, what should we, you know, I say, the patriarchal mindset of our landless members too. This is our duty, you know, that you know that when whenever in that time of pandemic, when we launched this hotline, we definitely want to continue this service because it was, we got huge response on this. And of course, we also try that there are many hotlines which has been the initiatives of the government, that we want to ensure it that our landless organization, they can use it, this hotline should be reached. And legal support, it is very much fundamental, it should be given, and wherever we are working, it is very fundamental. In some cases, financial support is also very important here. And that in the time of pandemic too, we have provided the shelter and security. Uh, and also one of our major concern was there, that that government have some legal aid fund, but the users were not insured. So we want to increase this users of government legal aid fund. It is very much important. And one of the things what Nijera Kori and landless organization do, that the mobilization movement, the protest, which it is very one of the fundamental thing. But when any this happen, any violence happened, then we, the landless members in Nijera Kori and the local many people, we mobilize them, and it is actually we work as a pressure group. And in the time of pandemic, you will heard about that we have done a research on that. So that is the pandemic is the reason for the increase this violence against women. That at the time of pandemic, there was huge violence against women, there were huge child marriage was there. So we are trying to find out the basic reason. Is only pandemic is the reason, or anything else is going there? So that is what we want. We want to build a linkage between the pressure groups, so that the whatever we are seeking justice, this can be ensured. So I think that and that Nijera Kori, when Nijera Kori's prime objectives is also just like that. So this is our regular duty to do this.
Thank you, Luki. That's you've set a really ambitious agenda for, and I know that is the way Nijera Kori works. You're trying to address issues on a variety of ways and in a lot of different ways, but getting at fundamental causes. And that I see when she was talking, Deepa, about sort of the need to change attitudes, and it goes back to what you were talking about, the lawyers and the judges, and some of the misogynistic attitudes that they and racist attitudes that they have. So if I ask you the same question about what needs to change, I'm expecting you're going to tell me some of that.
Yes, David, and I want to say that when Luki was talking about the representation of women, when she was talking about bringing all the people who are working on the issues together and building that pressure and keeping the government's feet to the fire and the change makers' feet to the fire, I was thinking it's very same. It's identical. I think some of the things on her wish list are identical to the things on my wish list. Because that's exactly what our struggle continues to be, to have a better representation of women judges in our courts, better representation of women in our boards, better representation of women in the spaces where they are decision makers. But in terms of this is a structural and systemic problem. Gender-based violence is a structural and systemic problem, and it needs a structural systemic solution. And that solution, in many ways, lies in a political will and change in a thought process of the structures that are created around it. A lot of structures that are created in Canadian context, I would say, are very time gap, band-aid kind of provisions, right? And I'll give you a simple example of, say, Schlifer Clinic, an organization that has been working on this issue, serves more than 10,000 women every year and gender diverse people every year. And And we are structured, project-based, no sustainable funding, no sustainable structures. And again, I'm talking about a context of Canada where that is a possibility, where that can happen. Someone just needs to sit down and say, if that organization has been doing this work, demonstrating their impact for 30 years in our community, when will we say that we actually need them as a permanent resource, or at least the resource till their number from 10,000 becomes 0, right? So why are we not investing in that reverse counting? Until we do that, this problem is not going to go away, right? So I always say this, I work in the sector so that my daughter and her children don't have to work in this sector anymore. I want this sector not to exist. It should be gone, right?
Are
Sorry,
you
David,
listening, Mr. Ford? I'm sorry, Luki.
Right?
The Premier of the province of Ontario should be listening to what Deepa is saying right now.
With the help of my colleagues and my sisters from the national movement, which Amanda, your board president, was part of, we have given the government of Canada a brief, a roadmap to have a national action plan to end gender-based violence in Canada. The brief is very, very brief. It's only 1,000 pages, but it has every possible detail that is needed to think through who should be consulted, who should be spoken to, what needs to happen, where the changes need to happen, and which includes education, which includes community accountability, which includes our justice system. We just need the political will for that action plan to actually become a reality. As I said before, Luki, we are a resource-rich country. We have a lot of resources. So I know that if I sit with you and we talk, exchange our challenges, I know that in Bangladesh, there is a challenge of resources that is also a parallel fight. It's a parallel fight that is happening. We have a Charter of Rights and a human rights, which has been accomplished. There are certain things at a base level that have been achieved. So we can springboard to much higher heights. But we are behind because we don't have the right resources put in the right place.
Thank you so much, Deepa. I'm tempted to ask another question of Luki, but I'm looking at the time and realizing that we've only got about 5 minutes left. So I would encourage people listening to put some questions in the Q&A at the bottom. And in the meantime, since I don't see one right now, I am going to ask a question of you, Luki, and that Deepa was saying, we have in Canada a Charter of Rights and Freedoms. We've got in many ways a good, a stable justice system. We have laws. If I turn that around and say, in Bangladesh, is the problem that you don't have the laws, or is it the problem that they're not enforced, that the laws are one thing and what happens in reality is another thing?
Thank you, David. There are many laws. But the problem is different types. Number one is there are many laws, but that law are these are not implemented, and that's as the society are being controlled by the powerful elites. So the law is therefore. So this is one of the problem, that the political powerful elites, which I have discussed earlier, that when they have tried to manipulate the laws manipulate the decision, manipulate the investigation process. So this is a big problem, the political influence, powerful elites influence. This is very a problem. And that the powerful political dynamics is here is the problem. And another problem is that we as these laws, whenever we have talked about the rape case, that one of the laws has been amended, that about the rape case. At that time, last year, we have talked about more on this, that what should be done. And that in many of the laws, these are implemented, these were about what should I say, that these are have come from the British law, the colonial period it has come. And in many cases, many laws, these are not changed yet. So it is our continuous fight to make the laws for being more convenient, for being that all the misogynist laws should be abandoned. It is our fight. But which law is there in for the women victims, or violence against women's victims, which is already law is there, but the women who are seeking the justice, they are not getting access to this because of the power imbalance, because the power dynamics is here, and the whole system is the patriarchal power structure. So this is what we are actually, it is a great challenge for us, that whenever our and witness, they don't feel secure to utter their voice. So at that case, that the case become dismissed. So Nijera Kori is trying hard in our working areas, that so that we can give the surety of the security of the witnesses. But that the case is huge. And if the witness should be given the security, then there are many cases women should get actually the justice, So this is a really great problem. And the biasness and the manipulation of our investigation process, it is that unbearable. It is a continuous fight for us.
Thank you, Luki. There's so much that you've raised and that Deepa has raised that I think it would be, if we had more time, really interesting to dig down on more. I want to say thank you to both of you. I'm struggling with how to sum this up. I think that you've both spoken eloquently about a lot of problems, a lot of different aspects. Sometimes the problems are the same. You've both mentioned the cost of the system. You've mentioned the inherent biases in the system, the tremendous sexism. You've also presented really optimistic and positive views. The work of Nijera Kori is very inspiring. The work of Barbra Schlifer Clinic is equally inspiring in terms of continuing to press, continuing to work for the changes in the justice systems that we need, finding ways to get more women involved in the legal system, finding ways to protect witnesses, as you say, finding ways to pay for the costs of legal cases in Bangladesh. So there are so many great things that both of your organizations are doing. I just want to congratulate both of you and thank you both for sharing a little bit of what work you're doing and your analysis on this issue. It's been, for me, a fascinating discussion. I'd like to thank as well our translator, the Monique for the tech support that we've had on this. God knows if you'd left it to me, it would be nobody'd hear anything. So I really appreciate all of that. Thank you to all of you who have come to join us today. We really appreciate that. And we will continue the discussions in many ways, thanks to all the participants in what I think has been a really good webinar. So with that, I will say thank you and we'll see you again.